In this lesson, we're going to focus on plumbing and bathrooms. Plumbing is another big step in the build and an important one to consider upfront. I've mentioned before that water and power are the two ingredients you need to live in a van. Everything else is secondary to these two. In this lesson, we'll talk about water storage, water pumps, shower and toilet options, as well as water heater options. Planning for water is so important because water is essential to our survival. It is not a luxury. A 5-minute hot shower might be a luxury, but when it comes down to it, you don't want to run out of water in a tight spot unsure of your nearest fill. Plus, it's not fun having to search for a water source right in the middle of cooking dinner or cleaning or right before you head out on a big hike and you need to fill up your water bottles. Two major things to consider are how much water do I want and where am I going to store it? Determining how much water storage you need comes down to your usage and how long you want to be out without refilling. The longer you plan to be away from facilities, the more storage you're going to need. Washing dishes, brushing your teeth, cooking, boiling water for coffee or tea, drinking water for you and your pets, showering, hosing off gear. These are all things that you need to be using your water for. So in this van, we have a 25-gallon permanently installed tank. And if we aren't using it to shower, we can go 5 to 7 days without needing to refill. And that's for 2 people. This requires conscientious use when we're doing our dishes, filling up at gas stations and campground spigots when possible, and never letting the water run unnecessarily. You might ask, well, why not get a 35 or 40-gallon tank? The answer is weight. A gallon of water weighs 8.34 pounds, so a 40-gallon tank would set you back 333 pounds. We talked earlier in this module about weight considerations and payloads, and water is one of the heaviest things you'll be loading up your van with. If you simply size up your water tank without thinking about how this affects your overall weight, it could put you over your vehicle's maximum payload. If you do know that you need 35 or 40 gallons, you should consider this when choosing a vehicle since payloads vary even across different sprinter van models. Once your plumbing system is set up, it's a good idea to do a practice run to find out how little water you need to completely wash your dishes, brush your teeth, cook, shower, etc. Carefully conserving your water can take some getting used to when you first hit the road, but it's easier to keep track of than, say, in a regular house since you'll be refilling the water yourself. Your water conservation habits will get better once you get used to having a limited quantity of water. The two options for water storage are permanent tanks and portable jugs, and there are benefits and drawbacks to each one. The first questions to ask yourself is, can I or will I lift and carry my water containers regularly? As I just mentioned, a gallon of water weighs about 8.34 pounds. So if you're filling a 5-gallon jug, that's about 40 pounds of weight. If you're not physically able or don't want to move heavy jugs regularly, this quickly rules out the portable container option. Permanent tanks have a greater capacity, which is helpful if you live in the van full time. You don't have to think about water as often, and it's less of a chore when you do need to fill up. To make it easy, you'll want to install a fill port on the outside of the van and keep things simple by having major water lines running on a single side of your van, including your tank, sink, water heater, and shower if possible. Some folks who use portable jugs might argue that it's easier to find places to fill up 5-gallon jugs versus places you can connect to with a hose. But in Module 4, we'll share our favorite resources for finding potable water regardless of your setup. The downside of permanent tanks is they require additional steps to winterize. If the van will be sitting for a while in freezing temps, you'll either need to blow out your entire system with an air compressor or maintain a warm interior temperature to prevent freezing of the pipes and tanks. Since you'll be filling up with a hose and you won't always be sure of the water quality, you'll also want to get an inline water filter that you can attach to your hose when you fill up, or one that's installed directly in your water lines. Large permanent tanks also take up a lot of precious storage space. And unless you never plan to travel in wintry climates, I highly recommend storing all of your water inside the van. Storing your tanks outside becomes a serious headache if you ever encounter below freezing temperatures and put your pipes at risk for damage. Portable jugs are a budget-friendly option for people who want a simpler setup. If you don't have a shower, want to fill up anywhere, and like having the flexibility to add or take out jugs depending on the length of your trip, portable jugs might be the way to go. Most people who go this route have a couple of 5-gallon jugs stored under their sink, and then you can always throw another jug or two in the garage if you plan to be away from facilities longer than usual. Unlike permanent tanks that need a designated fill station or hose, you can fill up portable jugs anywhere you go, including grocery store water dispensers and inside your friends' homes. As I mentioned, you'll be carrying these in and out of the van each time you need to refill, so it's best to use multiple 5 to 7 gallon jugs as opposed to one larger container. Portable jugs are also easier to clean than the permanent tanks, and you can dry them out in between uses. When it comes to winterizing, it doesn't get much simpler than the portable jugs. All you need to do is take the jugs out of the van and make sure there isn't any water left in the plumbing lines, and then you have nothing else to worry about. Ultimately, you need to determine how much water you need and want to store in the van at any given time. If you need 25 gallons stored, a permanent tank is probably the solution. If you're comfortable refilling regularly, portable jugs will probably work well for you. A commonly asked question is, well, where do you get water? As I mentioned, we'll go more into this in Module 4, but I'll briefly mention that this is dependent on whether you have a large permanent tank or smaller portable jugs. As we discussed, portable jugs can be filled at most grocery stores, inside gas stations, or at your friend's house, but permanent tanks require a little bit more planning. In the U.S., there are many places to fill up. RV dump stations are scattered all across the country and generally have potable drinking water available too. National parks, campgrounds, state parks, gas stations, and bike shops are just a few of the places we've filled up. Keep in mind that most of these spots do not provide a hose, so it's good practice to carry a hose and the attachments you need with you. If you decide to build a sink, shower, or plumb toilet, you'll most likely need a gray and/or blackwater tank. Gray water tanks collect used water that goes down the drain from washing dishes, cooking, toothbrushing, hand washing, everything other than human waste and chemicals. Blackwater tanks collect human waste. Typically, chemicals are used in blackwater tanks, and so for this reason, you need to empty blackwater tanks at RV dump stations. Some people, including myself, opt to not have a gray water tank and instead have a hose that drains directly out of the van. It's one less thing I have to worry about when traveling in the winter. However, not having a gray water tank does require special care to ensure you're abiding by Leave No Trace guidelines when you're disposing of your gray water. First, we scrape all the food particles off our plates into the trash. Then we have a strainer in the sink that catches any remaining scraps. Then we only do dishes with a minimal amount of eco-friendly biodegradable dish soap. We collect the gray water in a bucket that we place under the van where the gray water drains. Usually we can get away with doing all of our dishes with less than 2 gallons of water. And then when it comes time to dispose of the gray water, we make sure that we're at least 200 feet from rivers, lakes, or streams, and then we scatter it on barren dirt. Remember, even biodegradable soap is harmful to aquatic life and can pollute the waterways, so making sure you're at least 200 feet away from the water is very important. Biodegradable soaps need the bacteria in the soil to break down. So as I said, it's only okay to drain your gray water if you're well over 200 feet from a water source. Otherwise, the most environmentally friendly option is to have a gray water tank that can be emptied in a proper receptacle. Typically, a 4 or 5 gallon gray water tank is enough for regular sink use if it's emptied once a day or every other day, but you'll have a better idea of what size gray water tank you need once you determine your estimated water usage. If you do get a higher capacity gray water tank, like 5 gallons or more, best practice is to empty it at an RV dump station. Gray water tanks can be stored inside or outside depending on how big of a tank you choose. If it's inside, the tank can be hooked up right to your sink drain. Otherwise, you'll need to plumb a line down through the floor to the exterior tank. We're not going to talk too much about blackwater tanks because none of the toilet options we're going to recommend require a blackwater tank. However, blackwater tanks are usually stored underneath the van and will need a port installed to make the dumping process easier. So we've talked about water storage. Now let's talk about water pumps. Water pumps are a valuable component of the entire plumbing system. They basically move water from the water storage tank to your sink. Depending on how fast you want your water delivered and your space allowance, there are manual hand or foot pumps as well as mechanical pumps. Both styles of pumps are commonly used in boats, so check marine websites and stores while you're researching your options. Manual foot pumps are usually mounted on the floor and can pump about an average of 3 to 4 gallons per minute, which is a lot of water. The biggest draw for a manual foot pump is that they don't need power to operate. They also help conserve water since you're manually pumping each time you want water. Available in a wide range of prices, you're likely to find one that falls within your budget. Manual hand pumps are also available, but keep in mind you need one-handed pump, so it makes dishwashing and everything else just a little bit more difficult. So overall, going with the manual foot pump is simple and saves electricity. Mechanical water pumps are electrical, so they do require power, but you won't have to think about water delivery, which makes the van feel a little bit more like a regular house. They keep the water pressurized, so once the faucet is open, the pump will automatically engage and deliver the water at a steady rate. In most cases, you'll want to install an on-off switch for the pump and keep it turned off whenever you aren't running water. This switch will also prevent the pump from continuing to run if the water tanks run dry. Prolonged dry use can damage the pump, so that's an important step. Mechanical pumps run on 12-volt DC power, so they can be hardwired right into your battery bank. Both mechanical and manual water pumps vary in price, but average is around $25 to $85, so it doesn't have to break the bank. Just focus on finding a quality product that will meet your water delivery needs. Okay, so now let's move on to shower options. Showering on the road is a hot topic in the van life community for a good reason. You'll likely meet people from all over the spectrum, those with an enclosed instant hot showers, travelers who frequent gyms and campgrounds, and van dwellers that go a week or more without showering, and everything else in between. As we've been discussing throughout this module, converting your van into a livable space for you is all about your preferences, needs, and priorities. A shower is no exception here, so take some time thinking about what's important for your hygiene and the options available to you. Here are a few questions to ask yourself. Are you comfortable waiting a few days to shower until the next facility, or do you want to be able to shower every day? How much space are you willing to dedicate to a shower in the van, and will you be able to store enough water to take frequent showers? Will you be frequently traveling through areas with gyms and community recreation centers where you can shower, or will you be off the grid more often than not? And are you comfortable taking showers outside with a privacy structure of some sort? We're going to dive into the pros and cons of having a shower in your van to help you make the decision, and we'll talk about ways you can maintain your personal hygiene and shower while you're on the road. If you want to be self-sustaining and you want to be able to shower wherever you are, then you will want a shower of some sort in your van. In that case, you've got several options, but the biggest decision will be whether your shower is indoor or outdoor. Building a fully enclosed bathroom is appealing for several reasons: privacy and accessibility, just to name a couple. Plus, if you plan to live or travel in your van throughout the winter in a cold climate, showering outside will not be an option, which makes an indoor shower even more appealing. In this case, you'll require a 4-season bill with all of your water stored inside so your pipes are protected from the cold. Installing a fully enclosed indoor shower is complex and has a lot of components, including a quality water heater, which we'll talk about soon. For this reason, an indoor shower can add a huge cost to your build. A built-in shower also requires a lot more water. Without a built-in shower, you can get away with 10 to 15 gallons of water for 4 or 5 days off the grid, especially if you conserve. Add a shower into the equation and you'll need at least 25 gallons, if not more, depending on the number of people and your usage. And even with 25 gallons, you're not going to be showering every day unless you were hooked up at a campground. Otherwise, you're going to be spending all your time looking for places to fill up your water. When you do shower in your van, you'll need to carefully conserve shutting off the water when you soap up. I highly recommend getting a shower head that has an on-off switch on the handle to make this easy. You'll also need to think about where you can store enough water for your shower. Storing this much water inside the van is feasible if you have a larger van, but you'll have to do some serious finagling to fit all that water plus an indoor shower into the shorter van. Another thing to contemplate is how durable the bathroom needs to be. If you want a sturdy build that can handle rough dirt roads, choose aluminum for the structure and the shower pan. While beautiful tile work looks really nice in photos, it's a heavy material and cracks easily from the constant vibrations as you drive. You can also cut down on weight, cost, and space by using a simple shower curtain instead of a door. We've also seen shower pans recessed into the floor, making your shower space dual function, which is a really cool way of doing it. You can, of course, use your enclosed shower for storage, as I did in my first van. But what I found is that by the time I took everything out of the shower and put it back in, I could have gone into a rec center or a campground shower facility and actually had a better shower. If someone else is converting your van, it's imperative that they have experience installing showers. Otherwise, you could end up as a guinea pig with a leaking shower and inadequate equipment, which is what happened to me in my first van. Ultimately, an enclosed shower has its perks, but it's up to you to decide whether the pros outweigh the cons and if it's within your budget, as this is the most expensive and labor-intensive shower option for van life. If you want a hot shower but aren't into the idea of a built-in bathroom, then it looks like you'll be showering with a view. The perks of showering outdoors is that it won't take up any precious real estate inside the van, it has simpler plumbing, and it's a whole lot cheaper. You still need to be aware of your water consumption if you're using your reserve, but you also have a lot more options for how you will get hot water. We'll get to water heaters soon, where we'll share a number of options for both indoor and outdoor showers. In my van, there's a port off the back where you can hook up a shower hose to the back of the water tank for an outdoor shower. If I'm being perfectly honest, I've only used it a handful of times, but for the purpose of resale, I think it was a smart decision. Portable outdoor showers have come up in a trend recently because they're easy and they don't require electricity. There are many brands out there, but Rinse Kit is a popular one van lifers use to get decent water pressure without any pumping or power needed. The downside of this type of shower is that it doesn't pack down and the water isn't hot unless you fill it with hot water to begin with. We'll touch on some other portable outdoor shower options when we get into water heaters in just a moment. If you want to forgo a van shower setup altogether or want to be prepared in the event that you need a shower elsewhere, let's talk about your other options. There are plenty. Gym memberships are popular, but be sure to verify their locations ahead of time and make sure they're on your route. It's an extra monthly expense, so you want it to be worth the cost. Recreation centers typically have day passes available for purchase, which often give you access to their full facility. Sometimes they have a shower-only fee, so inquire about that if you just want to shower. Many campgrounds and RV parks also have showers, but only usually if you're a paying camper. Pilot and Flying J truck stops also have showers, but these tend to be on the pricier side. And don't forget your family and friends. Most of the time, friends are happy to let you shower, but if you want to show up clean and polished beforehand, maybe stop at one of these other places first. In the resources section, I'll share a link to a few blog posts where I've discussed the shower issue at length, and we'll also dive into how to find shower facilities in Module 4. Okay, so let's talk about water heaters now. As you can imagine, whether or not you need a water heater depends on your situation. If you want a fully enclosed indoor shower in your van, then yes, you're going to need a water heater. Otherwise, you won't end up using the shower much, and it will end up being an expensive closet. Having a water heater is also nice for outdoor showering or for doing dishes in the colder months. There are several options for water heaters with a wide range of costs. So we're going to talk about a handful of popular options that meet a variety of budgets. The major difference between the different options is the fuel source. Water heaters can run off diesel, propane, or even the power of the sun. The first option is to use a diesel heater like the WEBASTO Dual Top Evo 6, like the one I have in this van. This is a dual-purpose heater that heats both the air and the water by siphoning a small amount of fuel from the vehicle's diesel tank. This is an efficient choice that consumes a small amount of battery power, although you will still have a noticeable draw if you're running it 24/7. However, you can choose to only run the air heater or the water heater if you don't need both at the same time to save energy. The WEBASTO Dual Top has a decent-sized footprint and is fairly expensive. As for the install, the WEBASTO was designed for exterior mounting, but if you find yourself driving in harsh environments or on rough dirt roads where dirt and rocks are constantly being kicked up underneath the van, you might consider installing it inside. My WEBASTO in this van lives in the same storage box in my garage as my 25-gallon water tank. Similar to a lot of other water heaters, it can heat about 3 gallons at a time, so for showering you still have to be mindful of your consumption. Other top-of-the-line diesel heaters that heat both the air and the water include Propex, Espar, and Truma. Propane tankless water heaters are another popular option that can be tapped into your existing water tank. The biggest advantage of these is you get unlimited hot water on demand. This means you won't run out of hot water unless you either run out of propane or your water runs out altogether. Available with a pump or without a pump, you can connect a propane tankless heater to your water pump if necessary. This is an inexpensive, easy-to-use option for instant hot water that provides a flow rate of 2 to 3 gallons per minute. Another option that is a lot more economical is to use a rooftop solar shower, such as the road shower. This is essentially a cylindrical tube that is attached to the roof rack and heats water from the sun's warmth. For an even more economical solar option, a classic solar shower bag holds about 5 to 7 gallons of water and heats up in the hot sun within a few hours. Another similar option is the Nemo Helio shower, which works via foot pump, and that pumps the water up through the hose rather than using gravity like a road shower or a solar bag. Both the solar shower bag and the Nemo Helio shower are good options if you plan to be in warm, sunny conditions most of the time. Otherwise, neither will reach a very warm temperature. In all cases, if you plan on showering outdoors, I recommend a pop-up shower tent versus stringing a shower curtain across your back doors. While both provide privacy, a shower tent will provide some insulation from the wind. That covers a few of the most popular options for showers and hot water. If you're handy and want to spend some time browsing the van life forums online, people are finding additional creative but complex ways to heat water in these types of vans. We'll also share some of those additional resources and links down below. Okay, so we've covered showers and water heaters. Now let's talk about toilets. So, everybody poops, and for that reason, it's not surprising that where van lifers go to the bathroom is one of the most common questions I get. Understandably, a toilet is another important decision you need to make in regard to your personal needs. Depending on what you're comfortable with, you have several options. If you need a toilet, you need a toilet, and that's what it is. If the space is more important to you and a toilet isn't a concern, then you can usually find a toilet when you need one while traveling. But we'll talk more about that in Module 4. In my first van, I had a toilet, but I decided to forego one altogether in this van. When I had my first van, dumping the porta potty was the chore that I never wanted to do. And after talking with a few more experienced van lifers, I learned a lot of different options for getting by without one. So I'm going to be really frank with you guys here. I pee in a wide-mouth, empty trail mix jar with a screw-on lid. It's kind of like peeing in a cup at the doctor, but way easier with a bigger container. My jar fits nicely under the sink and is easy to get to when I need it. I use this exclusively in the middle of the night or if we're driving and there is no bathroom nearby. It only holds about 1 to 2 peas, so I dump it regularly, either in a toilet or at least 200 feet from lakes, rivers, and streams, according to Leave No Trace. I rinse it every day to prevent smells and buildup, and occasionally I'll drop a few drops of essential oils in there to mitigate odors. Without a toilet in the van, you also realize just how common public toilets actually are. They're literally everywhere. Trailheads, gas stations, parking lots, rest stops, restaurants, parks, campgrounds, grocery stores. If there's one of those nearby, I'll use it, but it's nice to know that I always have my jar as a backup. For number 2, again, there are public facilities everywhere, but for those times that we are camping off the grid with no access to a toilet, I go outside following Leave No Trace principles. That means digging a cat hole that's at least 6 inches deep and 200 feet from rivers, lakes, and streams, and packing out all of my used toilet paper. The good thing about having a van is that after you do your business, you have a sink with clean water that you can wash your hands in. It's been really liberating as a female to realize I can literally go anywhere and I personally don't need a toilet to survive. Most of the time, that is. Winter in cities are kind of a different story. In these situations, you can't just readily go outside, and it's not acceptable to just be dumping your pee jar in somebody's front yard. These are times I think that it sure would be nice to have a toilet in here. And that's where a portable toilet comes in. A portable toilet is nice because you can have one when you want, but if you decide you don't need it for a certain trip or destination, you can always leave it behind. Now that I've shared the dirty details of my daily business, I'll share some options for toilets that are good for van life if you know you want one in your van. For a permanent toilet for everyday use, one popular option today is a composting toilet. They're expensive, but everybody I know who has one loves them. They do require a dedicated compartment and they take up a decent amount of space, but not nearly as much vertical space as a fully enclosed bathroom would. Composting toilets usually separate the pee and the poop. Ideally, you'll empty the pee trap every 1 to 2 days into a toilet or the forest, respecting Leave No Trace principles. Using a composting fiber like coconut or pine dust, the poop breaks down and only needs to be disposed of when it's full. You do need to empty the compost into a bag first, and then that entire bag can be thrown into the trash. To ensure that your van doesn't stink, composting toilets need to be ventilated to the outside of the van using the toilet's fan and a hose. This means their installation is pretty much permanent, but for all the types of toilets we'll cover in this lesson, we'll share some recommendations in the resources section. Next up is a portable RV and marine cassette toilet. Thetford is a reputable brand that has several styles available. These are small and easy to use, and they don't require any installation. You can literally pick it up and move it around and get rid of it altogether if you realize you don't need it. This is an ideal option for people who want a toilet in their van but don't want to build anything around it. Plus, they're very inexpensive. They range from around $60 to $120. Use it just like a regular toilet. You sit, go, and flush. It has 2 compartments, a freshwater reservoir for flushing and a waste reservoir. Once it's full, just pop off the waste reservoir and empty it into a dump station or a public toilet. Using a biodegradable holding tank chemicals, they break down the waste and prevents odor. These toilets work well, but it's wise to clean them regularly if you don't plan to use it for a while. For the least expensive van toilet, Reliance Products Luggable Loo is a very simple 5-gallon bucket with a snap-on lid. You can pee straight into the bucket and dump and rinse in the morning, or for number 2, you can line the bucket with their compatible double duty bag, which contains some absorption power to neutralize the odor. When you're done, you just seal the bag and you throw it away. You can also DIY something just like this, and that should also work fine. Having a toilet means you won't have to search for a bathroom, and you'll be more comfortable going in your own space. And your toilet will also be as clean as you like to keep it, unlike most public restrooms. but you'll have the chore of emptying it out, a potential smell in your van, and they can take up a decent amount of space. Some of these factors may vary, but no matter what toilet you have, plumbed or portable, at some point you're going to have to empty out the toilet, which is just not a fun chore. But neither is having to find a public toilet at the last minute. If you decide you need a toilet, be sure to make room for it in your floor plan and your structural design. Even a small portable cassette toilet takes up a fair amount of space, so you need to plan accordingly. While decisions like this can seem really big, it's important to remember that everyone has different priorities, needs, and experiences. What works well for one person or what works for me might not work well for you. So hopefully, after learning about the various options for water storage, showers, water heaters, and toilets, you'll be able to make a choice that will suit your lifestyle and your budget.